So another thing that we can do with this this map here, and this is going into visualizing your stuff in 3D more dynamically, is we can actually project this map onto a sphere, so that actually is like on a planet, so to speak. And the reason we can do this is because if you think about it, this bounding box around the world map here is rectilinear. But we can use this to map it to a sphere in Rhino, because spheres in Rhino are basically warped rectangles. In Rhino, let's go to the sphere option here, sphere center radius. I'm just going to click somewhere and hold shift to make a sphere. You kind of see like there's this wireframe here and this dark edge here. This dark edge here is basically the edges of a rectangle kind of warped and meshed together. And then these curves around that are the U and V axes of that rectangle. So if you know how to use Grasshopper, you can actually do this really easily. So let's open Grasshopper real quick. Let's make a new script. And I'm going to set some curves in here. So first I'm going to set the curves I want to transform. So let's set multiple curves. Actually, let's do this. Let's use a pipeline, which is, in my opinion, a better way of bringing curve information into Grasshopper. So let's set that curve information to be continent. So this is continent, right? Actually, I'm gonna write this script in this one here, because we might actually bring in this information as well into the warp. So let's do that. Let's do, I'll turn this off for now. So bring in a pipeline, and we're gonna set the layer to be continent. So just copy the layer name, and then in layer, just paste it in there, hit the checkbox, and then double click on the curve icon so that it just automatically brings in the curve information in there. And then I want to also bring in the, well, let's just do that for now. What I'm going to do now is I'm also going to create a bounding box around that, and that bounding box is going to reference these curves here. So I'm just going to make a new layer and call this one bounding box. And then I will set a rectangle from this corner here to that corner there. Then I'll turn off the background layer. So now we just have this bounding box here. So I'm going to set that curve in Grasshopper. And then also let's set that surface that we just made. So right click, set one surface, and we're going to click on the sphere that we just made here. We'll just turn off the preview for that for now. So there are a few ways you can do this. I'll show you one of the ways. It's go to the transformation tab, and then in the morph tab there is this thing called surface morph. Then there's also this thing called map to surface. Both of these work. Map to surface works only if you have curve information, and surface morph is if you have 3D information. This is a little bit more intensive than this one here. So I'll start with this guy first. So the curve you want to map, that's going to be our continents here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to group them together. I'll flatten them and I'll group them. Then I'll plug that into the curve. Well, maybe I actually have to plug it in. Yeah, I guess I can't group it. Oh well, not a big deal. And then in the base surface, that's going to be this curve here. So all I'll do is I'll set that, use the boundary surfaces to turn that curve into a surface. And then I'll plug that into the S. And just to be safe, I'm going to reparameterize that surface so that the domain is from 0 to 1 on both the U and V axes. And then set the T to this surface here. And then I'm going to reparameterize that as well. And if I go to perspective view here, you can kind of see that what you've basically done is you've mapped the United States onto this orb here. So now, so what's cool is the fact that since this map here is a rectilinear grid, and it's a perfect rectilinear grid, this would not work if your grid was distorted. It actually mapped onto the surface, or onto the sphere perfectly. So basically, as you can see, Antarctica has finally become Antarctica. Before it was like this long thing here, and then Russia has now, scaled down to be more realistic in size. So let's take this technique and let's use the state map here to bring that in. So what I want to do is I want to bring these curves. Let's copy and paste that guy up here, and we want to use these curves. I'm going to flatten this list. Oops. I keep spelling flatten wrong. Flatten, there we go. Let's flatten these curves here, and then we're going to use the same exact bounding box here, so we actually don't need to do anything else except just plug this into here like that. So with these two, let's turn off the preview for everything else just to clean up our space. Now you see basically we've taken that United States map and we've applied it to that 3D surface. Actually, I'm not going to flatten it. I'm going to just plug it in directly. I think that should work fine as well. And if I can get to probably like an area. I don't know if I can get, no, I can't. Let's do point on curve for now. And then let's just use that. And yeah, it's kind of, well, it's kind of broken, but I mean, you can see that it does put the state. So you can come up with a script, to kind of label these and put a plane on that there. But there are ways you can do that. This is not the right way to do it, so I'll just delete it. But basically, now you see you're able to take that map and project it onto the sphere. So now this is realistic, and now we can bake these curves. So let's make a new layer. Call this one projected country or continents. Double click on that, and let's bake this guy first. Then do another one, duplicate layer, and call this one projected states. And then bake that. Then you can turn off everything. You can even turn off the sphere if you don't want to look at it, but let's just have it. Let's just keep it there, and maybe let's do a shaded view or something. But now you can see basically you've taken your GIS information and you've put it on a cool 3D surface here. So now imagine taking your map and actually putting it onto a spherical surface to make a lot more dynamic looking map. A map from space, so to speak. So these are things you cannot do in ArcGIS, but you can do because you're architects and you know how to use Rhino. So yeah, and that's that tutorial.